I do want to talk about the weather in a moment, but before that, I had the opportunity to go to Iowa over the summer. I was there for the caucus back in 2020. You are a lifelong Iowan, so I am curious. One thing that I've noticed is how proud Iowa is of that first in the nation status. But how much does Iowa really matter when it comes to the primary? Because historically, aside from those who ran uncontested, only 3 people who won their caucuses eventually became president. And yes, I'm looking at you, Jimmy Carter, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama. So point blank, how much does Iowa matter?
It actually matters a lot more than those statistics kind of give, because any expert will tell you, and I've talked to many of them at the beginning of this whole process about a year ago, that we're not necessarily here to tell you who the next president will be. We're here to tell you who's a valid candidate for you to pay attention to. We use that term, weeding out the contenders from the pretenders. And that's really what it comes down to. Who has enough energy, enough money to campaign all through, the primaries and the caucus season. So this is really, we've already weeded out quite a few. And I'm not going to put titles on whether they're contenders or pretenders, but it's who has the energy, who has the support, who has the platforms that can sustain a campaign against the other party at this point. So we're not here necessarily to say, if Trump wins caucus night, he's going to be the next president, but we're here to say, here are the valid candidates you should be paying attention to.
Sarah, I do want you to talk to us about the polls we're seeing coming out of Iowa because, as we've noted for months now, possibly a year, there is one obvious frontrunner, but then there is this race inside the race for second place. So break down the numbers for us.
One of the polls we have is the USA Today poll, which has Trump at 53.3%, Haley at 18%, DeSantis at 15.5%, Ramaswamy at 6.5%. It has Christie listed at 3.3%, but we obviously know that he has now dropped out of the race. I think what's interesting is comparing these polls to New Hampshire polls right now. And what it shows us is that Trump really still has a foothold in Iowa, but maybe not so much in some of the other early states. Nikki Haley in one of the polls that I saw this week was actually pretty competitive with Trump at like 20 some percent. I can't quite remember off the top of my head, but it's interesting to see, Trump may, shine bright right now here in Iowa, but he might not do well in some of the other states that we're going to see before Super Tuesday. So we'll see how this shakes out, but I think we might have some surprises that it's not going to be as clear cut as some of these polls show when come Monday night.